Hello and welcome to the Daily Devotion for May 8th. This is Kids Day. I'm Peter Morris. I'm a member of the Dixon United Methodist Church, and today I'm going to be taking you through how to make the strawberry shortcakes. Strawberry shortcakes are one of the treats we have at the church every Mother's Day. We have a lovely time where all the children of the church, the youth of the church, some of the men of the church gather in the kitchen and we together bake strawberry shortcakes as a celebration of Mother's Day. It's very sad that we can't be all together for that and have that great time in the kitchen. So today I'm going to show you how we make our strawberry shortcakes. So I'm hoping that you can make these at home and have a lovely time with family and celebration of Mother's Day. So as we're getting ready for this, what we want to do is to start off by gathering all of our dry ingredients. You're going to want to have some flour, that's the core of it. We'll need about 2 cups of flour. We need baking powder, just a little bit of that, some salt and some sugar. The 4 dry ingredients that go into this is a very simple recipe. And then we will need some butter. We use melted butter, so having got the butter, we melt 1/3 of a cup of butter and have that ready. And we need to be very careful around the melted butter. It's not all that hot, but it's still enough to give you a surprise. And it's also very messy if you spill it. So once you've melted it, be very careful with it. And then we will have some milk. We need 3/4 of a cup of milk. So once we've gathered all our ingredients together, and it's good to get those all set before we get started, we then need something to cook it on. And so you'll need a baking tray, something like this, or a flat bottom dish, anything of that nature will do. And we also need to get the oven ready to start. And so you want to pre-warm the oven, set the oven to 400 degrees. And one of the things to watch for is that different baking trays sometimes have different reactions to the oven, and so you're going to want to be checking this baking tray. We generally have to set our temperature 25 degrees less, otherwise we find the bottom burns. So talk to your parents, find out about how your oven behaves, and of course if it doesn't work out perfectly, you can always cut the bottom off and eat those and then make another batch and keep practicing until you get it right and have lots of lovely shortcake. So we've got the ingredients, we've got the baking tray, we've got the oven quietly warming over in the corner there. So the next step is we wash our hands. For those of you who've been with us in the Sundays when we have been able to cook, you know the first thing we always do, even before the virus, was we always would wash our hands very carefully so that we made sure that nothing got into the baking that wasn't meant to be there. So once we've got our hands nice and clean, ready to start the cooking. So washed, dried, and we're ready to start measuring. So we start off with 2 cups of flour. Just scoop the cup out, give it a little bit of a shake, because what you want to do is to have it kind of flat across the top. So 2 cups of flour into the mixing bowl. Put the flour to one side. We will put a spoonful of sugar, depending on the size of your spoon, 1 spoonful, 2 spoonfuls, but just something of that size to give it a little bit of sweetness. We'll put in a little bit of salt, again about a spoonful of salt, and it depends on the size of your spoon and how much salt you like, but 1 spoonful should be plenty there. And then the baking powder. And this is one that you will want to try and measure fairly carefully. It does make a difference. So a 1 teaspoon measure, and that again flat across the top. These often have a little nice handy little scraper on the top of them to get them measured, and you want 3 teaspoons of baking powder. Put the lid back on the baking powder so that it doesn't get anything into it or wet, and then you'll take a fork and just mix those dry ingredients together very, very gently, just to get them all kind of mixed up together. A little bit of a mix there. So that's the dry bits. Then we get to the wet bits. You're going to want to have 3/4 cups of milk, and so set your cup on a measuring cup on a level place. Look on it where it says 3/4 cup, so you know where you're filling it to. And then just pour the milk in very gently, very slowly, so you can stop at the right point. And 3/4 cup. And so that's measured there nicely. And we're going to pour that into the flour mixture, and we're going to pour the melted butter into the flour mixture, and then again with the fork we're just going to stir it all up. We're trying to get all of that flour wet with the milk and the butter, and try not to spread too much around the kitchen. Of course, it wouldn't be a Mother's Day cooking if we didn't get a little flour on the floor, but it's best only to do that at the church and not in your home. It's all nicely mixed up, and this is where it gets a little messy. So you can see there it's just all mixed into a sort of a kind of a paste. Then we get a little bit of flour on our hands so that the stuff doesn't stick to us. Dust our hands with the flour, and what we want to do is to get our hand in the bowl, either one hand, if you've got big hands like mine, or little hands, you can do both hands. And what we're trying to do is not squish it a lot. This doesn't take a lot of work. We're trying to get it so that all the dough is picked up into one big ball. So as you can see there, into the ball of dough. And then we can pick it up and squish it a little bit, and then we're ready to start putting that onto the baking tray. So put that down, again a little bit of flour. If you've got a nice non-stick baking pan, you might not need any flour on it. I'm just used to putting flour down. It again helps the biscuits not stick to the bottom, and also helps the bottom stay a little bit dry there. Then from the bowl, pinch a little bit out, a bit more, and you're going to roll it into a nice round, flattish ball. Another bunch. Not too big, otherwise they don't cook all the way through, and particularly not too fat. So you want them relatively flat there. The amount we've shown here usually makes about 4 of the shortcakes. If you want to have more shortcakes, just keep going, make another load, or double up the ingredients. It's a very, very easy recipe to increase as you go. And then we've got our 4 biscuits sitting on the baking tray. Last thing we want to do is we'll need just a little bit more milk in a little cup here or bowl. Pour just a little bit of milk in there. And if you've got a nice pastry brush, you can use that, but it's quite easy just to use your fingers. And what we're going to do is put a little bit of milk on the top of each one of those. And then we're ready to put them into the oven to bake. Because they've got the baking powder in there, you don't want to leave them long before they go into the oven. So hands washed just so I'm not messy as I carry this over to the oven. And in they go. Inside the oven they want to be on a higher shelf, if anything, just so they brown up nicely on the top. And when they're finished, they should look something like this. These didn't quite brown up all the way on the top, but you can see the bottom is nice and brown. And the other way you can tell they're done is just by tapping the bottom, and they have a nice hollow sound. Should take about 10 to 12 minutes. Depending on the size of the biscuits, it might take 15. I realize that at church we never time them. We just always are ready to eat them, and we just watch them until they go nice and golden brown. Whilst they're cooking, it's a good time to cut up the strawberries. Put a little basket of strawberries like this, and then they're all nicely sliced up. You can put a little bit of sugar on the strawberries, or you can have them just as they are. Take one of the biscuits, cut it in half, scoop some of the strawberries onto that. Let's get out a nice big scoop spoon here. Scoop the strawberries onto it. There we go. And then some whipping cream. We always like to use the heavy whipping cream, but you can use whatever you want. You can even use the squirty whipping cream if you want to. If you make your own whipping cream, very easy to make, and it's much nicer. Just put a little bit of powdered sugar into the whipping cream. Just about a tablespoonful is enough for the whipping cream. And we usually put a little bit of vanilla in it just to give it a little bit of extra flavor. Put it into a nice bowl with a mixer, and this was mixed ahead of time, and you have the nice whipping cream sitting there in the bowl, and we're ready to put some whipping cream on top of that. And there we have our lovely strawberry shortcakes. Celebrate this in your homes and say thank you to your mums for all the care they share with you. And I look forward to seeing you next year when we're back in the kitchen and can have this fun together.